professional motivational speaker takes persistence, it takes focus, and it takes determination. I can remember my first time when I ever thought I was going to be a motivational speaker. I went to lunch with a man by the name of Cody Woods. Pretty sure you all know him. And we were at the Rib and Chop Shop. And he was telling me a little bit about YBGR and the organization that he works for. And at the time, I was a program manager for a company called Aware, which worked for mental health group home kids. I'd been there for 3.5 years. And as I sat there with him, I was ready for a change because I'd already reached the cap of what I wanted to do. And they were going to ask me to go to more schooling in order to go higher in the company. And I was over it. I didn't want to do that. And while I was talking with him, he told me about a place called Toastmasters. And the reason why that came up was because I just signed with a network marketing company called Vima. And when he said Toastmasters, I was like, no, that sounds like one of those like rich people's secret societies. I can't do that. Right? And he's quickly explained to me, no, Mecklen, it's a place that you go to hone your motivational speaking skills or to hone your public speaking skills, which would go hand in hand with your network marketing. And so I remember leaving that meeting with that little seed in my mind, but I didn't really think much of it. A week later, I was sitting in my office at Aware, and I read an interesting stat. And the stat said that 97% of us work for the other 3. I'm going to say that again. 97% of us work for the other 3%. And I'm a very simple-minded individual, so I had to switch that around a little bit. And so I was like, so you mean to tell me that only 3% of individuals are entrepreneurs or work on their own time? I want to be one of that 3%. At that day, I decided I was going to put in my 2 weeks notice. And I hopped on my computer and I looked for the nearest Toastmaster group to me, which happened to be the Gallatin Valley Toastmaster Club. And I don't know if any of you have been a part of or been at any of their meetings. They are a bunch of wise and very, very accomplished individuals. And so a week later, I walked into the Gallatin Valley Toastmasters, and I was a little nervous because, again, being an African American and going to clubs like this, it's always a little bit intimidating. And so when I walked in, I see a man with the hair slicked back like John Travolta in Grease. Right? And he's telling exuberant stories with great hand gestures and powerful words. And I'm like, you know what? I think I can do that. So I patiently waited till after the Toastmasters meeting. And I walked up to this man that looked like John Travolta in Grease. And I said, sir, I want to be a professional motivational speaker. How do I do that? And he goes, well, sir, if that's what you truly want to do, you need to ask that man. And I look across the room, and it's a big 6'2", pudgy, bald-head man with a stamp that said "Risen" on the back of his head because it was like the day before Good Friday. And so I'm thinking to myself, wow, any person that can put a stamp "Risen" on the back of his head is truly in tune with himself, right? So I walked up to this man and I said, sir, John Travolta over there told me that I need to come talk to you in order to become a professional motivational speaker. And he looked at me and he said, is that what you really want to do? And I said, yes, sir, that's what I really want to do. He said, well, then go back to John Travolta over there and give him your email. And so I did. 2 days later, I looked at my emails, and John Travolta was Tom Stencil. And he had assigned me my first mentor, and the man with the Risen stamp on the back of his head was Joe Lair. At that time, I was a very broken individual. And because of those 2 individuals, I'm able to stand in front of you guys here today. Now, when I first met them, I was given free motivational speeches in the backyards of teenagers promoting VIMA and helping with their confidence. And after I met them, they slowly started to work with me and slowly started to harvest the powers that I had as a motivational speaker. And I can remember my first icebreaker, which was very well done now. And I can remember the first 2 stories I had to come up with out of the competent manual. And they were so impressed with the way I delivered and the passion that I had for speaking that they invited me to a club called Speakers Connection. How many of you have heard of that? All right. Speakers Connection was a place where I was able to hone my skills, I was able to experiment with my stories, and I was really able to be myself. Now, one of the things that's different about Speakers Connection is the fact that speeches are 10 to 30 minutes, not 6 to 8 or 5 to 7. It's preparing you for the big leagues. And my first speech that I ever talked about was called Dream Chasing, which I actually presented in front of you guys a year ago. And that speech was practiced and honed over so many times in Speakers Connection that by the time I come to approach you guys with it, it was merely flawless. After speaking with you guys, I went on to speak at schools. I went on to start a leadership program called Gifted Outliers. I've been up to Fort Belknap in some of the extreme poverty areas and spoken to kids there while running basketball clinics. I've been extremely blessed to be able to travel the road that I'm on. But without Speakers Connection, that wouldn't have happened. And that's what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. The difference between Toastmasters and Speakers Connection. Now, when I went to our last Speakers Connection meeting on Saturday, they asked me to hone in on a few points that really makes things different. Of course, the first one is the length of a speech, right? 10 to 30 minutes. And I'm not going to lie to you. The first time they told me I had to speak for 30 minutes, I was like, I can't talk that long. I have nothing to talk about for 30 minutes. There's no possible way. Am I going to memorize something for 30 minutes? I can't memorize 30 minutes worth of data. I don't know what to do. It's really not that hard. It's really not that hard. The second thing that is different about Speakers Connection is the fact that you have to check your ego at the door. I remember being a basketball player at MSU, and every single practice, every single game is filmed. And those games where you get beat by like 20 or 30, you do not want to go watch the film. And the first thing my coach would say when we walked into the locker room is check your ego at the door because film doesn't lie. And half the time as a player, you knew the play that you messed up on, and you were just praying to God that coach would just skip right over that. Needless to say, it never happened. But what I learned from that was how to take constructive criticism. I learned how to set my pride aside because no coach is talking to you to hurt you. They're talking to you to make you better. And that was the biggest thing that I appreciate about Speakers Connection is the constructive criticism. How they literally break your speech down to nothing and then build it back up into something great. The next thing that makes Speakers Connection a little different is that we only meet twice a month. On the first and third Saturday of the month at 10 a.m. at the new, was it GMC Bellion? JC Bellion. All right? Which then in itself is tough because sometimes you don't even deliver a speech for like 2 months. But when you do, it is one of the greatest feelings ever. In conclusion, I invite all of you to at least try out Speakers Connection one time. Because Speakers Connection is the stepping stone for you to reach the zenith of your career. And for all of you that are serious, like you, men, and you, sir, I would strongly encourage you to come join our Speakers Connection family. Thank you for having me today. I wish you the best.